Welcome to the Thrive College podcast. I'm Dina Davidson, host of the podcast and discipleship director of Thrive College. Your laughing leans like, yeah, we know who you are. I love it. Today in the studio, we have Morgan May. Morgan May, you just wrapped up teaching at the Unleashed conference. And for anyone that was not in the room, at the end, you had students stand that needed to receive prayer for the mental battles that they were undergoing. Tell us what that felt like in the moment, being on stage, having the opportunity to pray for this massive amount of students that stood.
Yeah. I feel like that moment, partially, I feel like that moment was a little bit selfish. If there is any kind of like here's what I mean. I feel like when I was in middle school and high school, that was the absolute heights of my battle, my mental battle with anxiety and, depression, moods shifting, all of those things. And I always felt so isolated in that. Sure. I felt so alone. And I had a few people that I could talk to, but no one who really understood. And it's honestly when I got really close in my relationship with God.
Sure.
I learned how to trust Jesus more in that season than ever. But I remember thinking, man, I just wish that somebody would stand up and tell me, hey, I see you. And this is real. This is a real battle. And I believe that God wants to do something through this. So many doubts, so many things that I was lies that I was believing in that season of my life, because I saw this big fear in front of me and all I kept thinking were, well, what if I can't do this?
Right.
What if this fear keeps me from this? What if this fear keeps me from going to college, moving away from home, taking a missions trip, ever speaking to anybody? I was like, what can I do? Right? If this is what my reality is. And so I loved that moment because I wanted that moment when I was a kid for someone to say, hey, God sees you in what you're going through.
So
God's desire is to bring you peace. And also you're not alone in needing that peace, that there are people here that are dealing with the same thing. So
it's amazing.
Doing it felt like I was with them. That's the thing about this message and why I've hated preparing for this message. I even told Dina this the other day. I was like, this has been my least favorite preparation process because the vulnerability of that, like when God asks you to be vulnerable about your story, vulnerable about the broken parts of you that the gospel intersected, it's like, that's not really the cute stuff anymore.
Right.
That's like the serious, hard stuff.
Yeah.
And so, the preparation of that was hard. But then that moment of getting to pray for students who are dealing with the same thing that I'm currently struggling with, that was like joy, Right. So, thanks for asking that.
We just dove right in without any formal introduction. If you know,
that was way too much information.
Welcome
to the podcast.
Welcome to the podcast. I feel like someone's listening and they're like, I am definitely tuning in because you're meeting me right where I'm at.
Yeah.
But I probably should tell people who you are. You are the groups.
You don't need to know anything else.
Yeah, it's fine. She struggles with anxiety. Yeah. And she just crushed it at Thrive Unleashed. But the more formal stuff, you are part of our groups discipleship, adult discipleship at Bayside. You are a kick butt killer, sought after intern director by our Thrive College students. You are well loved, one of our favorite D-Time speakers. And my favorite fun fact about you is that you were a dance major in college.
Yes.
That's fun.
Yeah. So I went to school for dance at Texas Tech University. And I kind of love everything about my college experience because Texas Tech is a great school, but it's the school you go to I shouldn't say this, but the reason
sorry, Texas Tech.
The reason why I went there is because I loved it, but also because I did not get into Texas A&M or the University of Texas.
Right.
It's like a little bit more of that median grade point average. And I went to school to be a dance major, and you would think by listening to that, oh, she's probably a fantastic dancer. And I'm not. I'm very average.
Wait,
I'm very average.
You have a degree in dancing.
Yes.
And you're just average at dancing.
No, I'm not. I'm not actually that good. I'm proficient.
How did you?
I know. Well, I was in, so there's 4 levels of each genre. Ballet has 4 levels, jazz has 4 levels, modern has 4 levels. Ballet, which is the core of what you do. You have to do ballet well if you're going to graduate. And I was in ballet 2. You have to get to 4 to graduate. I was in ballet 2 until my senior year.
Oh my God.
So I walked into the head of dance and I was like, we're going to have to do something for me to graduate on time. And they ended up pulling some strings and I graduated. But I'm not great. I'm not great.
With you.
I'm not. So it's funny because everything about college felt average, you know, like
Yeah.
in a good way, right? Like leave room for God to be great. You be faithful, God be great.
Oh, you be faithful, God
I
be
like
great.
that.
Hey, tweet that out. That's
like
so
that.
good.
Write that down. Write that down.
Down.
Well, you've been hearing some awesome student voices and seeing these lovely faces. So let's actually introduce them. Caleb,
What's up, guys? I'm Caleb. I'm a second
kind
year.
of gave that away. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
it's okay.
Sorry about that.
It's my part.
It's my part.
That's my part. Don't
It's
steal.
my line.
I am interning for our global outreach team. So we do missions across all the world and help support and raise funds for missions around the world. So
Love it.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I love that.
Perfect. Oh, what do you want to do one day?
Oh, cool.
Honestly, you said that earlier, and I was like,
Yeah.
I have no idea what I want to do.
okay.
So we're just gonna leave that.
You just
blank
that's
slate.
why
like,
you
I'm
didn't
just
answer
waiting.
that
I didn't,
question.
yeah.
Just chilling.
Waiting for the Spirit of God to
I'll
really just
decide
know and
Caleb's
tell me.
future.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to do whatever God wants you to do. Blah, blah, blah.
Ah.
Okay. We'll
Sit out
clarify
in
it
the
later
cookie
on.
cutter. Come
I
on.
love
If it
it.
comes to you in the course of the podcast, please pipe it.
Yeah.
How about you, Leans?
My name is Leans. I am a Thrive College student as well, and I
Yes.
intern for middle school ministry. And my hope, my dream, my goal is to be a student's pastor. So,
Oh, yeah.
I love it. I didn't know that about you.
yeah.
Do you like middle school, high school, college?
I like all of them, honestly.
Better?
All
Oh, you
of
like
them,
all
yeah.
of it.
But I don't know. I just feel drawn more to middle schoolers because one, they're really weird, and it's like I'm not.
What?
Like,
Middle
high schoolers
schoolers?
scare me, okay? But middle schoolers,
are
it's like I
scary.
can
High schools are
be
scary.
myself. I can,
Yes.
you know, yeah, just be myself. And also, I just wish that I had like an older sister mentor when I was in middle school and even in high school. So it's like that's what I want to be to these like students.
I
so
love that.
Great. That's
Nice.
amazing.
So-
That's incredible.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
yeah.
Morgan, we have some rapid fire questions for you.
Okay. I love
Okay,
it.
you ready
Let's
for
do it.
this?
Yep.
Where were you born? Where do you live now? And tell us one thing about your youth you wish more people knew.
Born in Austin, Texas, the great state of Texas. I live in Sacramento area, Roseville, Granite Bay area.
We're not going to come find you. It's
now.
okay.
Here's my address.
Literally,
Oh.
Kurt Harlow was like,
I
here's
will-
the street I live on.
Oh my
You're like,
gosh.
what are you
Please
doing?
don't tell us that.
Yeah.
This is a public podcast.
Stop that.
So that's where I live now. So I moved here a little over 2 years ago from Texas. I moved in 2020, so like right in the middle of COVID. And I literally moved here
Bold.
because I got the job at Bayside.
Yes.
And I didn't know anybody coming here. So I moved here by myself, which was a whole thing. But one thing that I wish more people knew about me, I mean, this seems like low-hanging fruit because we just talked about this, but I feel like so much of what I get to do now, when people hear that I struggled for my whole life with very crippling anxiety, that seems to be a little bit of a surprise to people. Like the dots don't connect.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I wish people knew that, but it is something that I think God is using recently to like use God using his power showing up in a very specific way through that
Yes.
weakness. So
I
I feel
love
like
that.
I've been asked recently to be very vulnerable about that,
Yeah.
which is really fun.
Vulnerability is
to be
the
vulnerable.
best.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, so maybe that.
Okay.
Other than that, there was a musical theater production I was in that I was Mrs. Potts, Beauty and the Beast.
Okay.
Oh, that's
Also,
so
The
cool.
Wicked Witch of the West.
Okay. Those are very different
Yes,
roles.
Two
I would
different
have
roles.
to say.
I was always trying to be like the heroine, like main girl, and then I always got cast as whatever was
Yeah.
like green and evil.
Yeah.
or just
So-
really gentle and somewhat elderly as Mrs.
I know.
Potts.
I'm building this like strange character profile for
I
everybody.
am.
that
I'm like,
feels
those are such
very
different
hot
vibes.
like, this girl's got some range.
Yeah,
She's
look at
yeah,
her.
Sorry.
Okay, hey,
Anyways.
one day
Yeah.
we'll get you to be that.
Yeah. What
that
about you
main
guys?
Character.
What's one thing you wish someone knew about you, or from growing up?
Oh,
What were you like?
From growing up,
Yeah. What were you like as a kid?
was not charismatic at all.
Oh.
Like if you guys saw me in high school, so if we go to high school camp, right?
Yep.
There's always those kids you'll sit down with and you'll be like, "What do you think about the sermon? What is it?" And they'll just kind of sit back and cross their arms. and be
Oh,
like,
that was you?
whatever, and then not say anything the rest of the time. And that was like high school camp would not give my leader the light of day, like
Oh
at
my
all.
gosh.
Even in middle school, they would ask me, "Hey, what do you think about the scripture?" I'm like, sure. Go on.
Okay, you're the worst nightmare.
Caleb
Yeah,
was
I am the worst nightmare, and now I'm here. So.
The student who
God.
just seems to be getting out of nothing. But look, hey,
Yeah.
we're
I'm the one whose mom made me go, and I had to be.
Oh,
love
okay,
it.
Yeah.
Good for your mom.
okay.
That's a testament.
Yeah.
to
Good
you.
job, Mom.
That's great.
It's just like, come on, moms don't need more
Lisa, what about
credit.
you?
That's great. Let's see. Something about my childhood. So I would say I'm a really big Disney fan now, okay? But
Ooh.
I kind of toned down a little bit. I was an even bigger Disney fan as a kid, and me and my dad, I've gone to Disneyland. I would say maybe about like 50 times throughout my life.
What?
I'm 19
Is that an
years
actual
old.
number?
Yeah.
50 times.
Like around 50 times, yeah.
That's more than 3 times a year.
That's
Maybe.
such
Yeah.
good
So
math.
my dad would like take me like 3 to 4 times a year.
Oh my goodness.
When I
Good
was a
job,
kid.
Dad.
Yeah.
And we would just go.
need to
Also,
talk to my
not
parents.
to mention, some people don't believe me when I say this, but when I was 3 years old, my first trip to Disneyland, I got on California Screaming with my dad.
Shut up. How did I don't even think you
I don't
the
know
height
how.
requirement.
My mom has a picture of it,
Oh.
but
Dad. They're like, he's a
Yeah.
regular. Let
I'm
him
kind of
in.
embarrassed. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
I've never been. I've never been
Okay.
to Disneyland
Oh.
or Disney World, so
Oh
I don't
my
know. Like
gosh.
you're saying things, and I'm like,
been
yeah, but I'm
living
like,
in
I have no
California
idea.
for
This
2
side of the
years.
table. There we
Me and
go.
Caleb are more of like the mature.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The
Rest
guy
of you-
that just didn't really love Jesus. So
Actually,
apparently
yeah.
we'll
Not
get-
enough to know where I want to go in
Wanna
life. Yeah.
associate
Yeah,
with
I'm gonna
him.
divide this team.
Oh,
Actually.
okay. It's
Sorry.
quarters over here.
What's yours?
oh
Sorry, I'm
gosh.
hijacking.
You're hijacking. This is Morgan May.
No, it's not. It's
no,
not.
it is so good, Morgan. No one's asked us the question so far, so we haven't had to actually
I'm-
think this through. This
This
is
could be
so
like a
good.
45-minute podcast.
No.
I'm
It's
fine
good.
with
Sorry.
that.
I
Sorry.
want people to know that I was really drawn to only having shy friends. I don't know.
Interesting.
I have really tried to figure that out about myself. Like, if you go back, I always had one best friend, and she was literally the same person. Extremely shy, very gentle spirited. And I think like there was something inside of me, even at a young age, that knew that I was kind of like a lot, and that I needed some people in my life who would kind of just bring it down. But I'm still trying to psychoanalyze myself. So if you have any
That
theories,
is
send them to
interesting.
me.
I want to hear what like a counselor says about that.
I
'cause
do.
I'm going so many different directions in my brain right now.
Okay, we can chat afterwards.
I'm not a
'cause I have
counselor,
so
don't
many
ask me.
theories. Yeah. All right, we'll
okay.
get in the office with the counselor one day. Unpack it.
Like I know
Yeah.
everybody so much better now. It's good.
So
Sorry.
perfect. Great launching off point for our questions. And Leans, you want to kick off with your question for
I do.
Morgan?
So, something that I've always like struggled with since I was a kid is really bad anxiety. So it was like, it was cool being able to hear you speak about it today and just like really feeling it like press against my heart. But one like main question that I have is like, what does the Bible say about anxiety and like how to overcome it?
Okay, so Philippians 4:6 is the first thing that comes to mind because I think we process this verse incorrectly sometimes. So Philippians 4:6, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication, make your requests known to God. So I think sometimes, which I grew up in a fantastic family under leadership of parents, but specifically my mom, who had struggled with anxiety. And if like I look back to my childhood and I'm like, no one was talking about this then. So I can't even imagine what life was like for my mom as a kid. Because I feel like the more generations we go, the more honest we're talking about any kind of mental illness or mental battles, right? So my mom was always deeply understanding. And even if she didn't fully understand a certain symptom that I was having, she was always very like kind and receptive, never made me feel like whatever I was doing was sin. But some people, I think, take the approach to someone with anxiety and they'll say, you just need to stop worrying because you don't have enough faith. You're not trusting God, right? And they'll use maybe Philippians 4:6. Don't be anxious about anything, but with everything by prayer and supplication. You need to worry less and you need to trust more. But with someone like you and me, and maybe Caleb and Dina, I don't know if they struggle with this or not, but like the actual anxiety, it's not necessarily something where I can just turn on and off my ability to worry or not worry. Like it's so much greater than that. It's so much more of a beast than that. I mean, it's the result of a collapsing, fallen, broken world. There's evil that we do because we're sinners. There's evil that's done to us. Right. I think a big part of having this anxiety or whatever your variation of a mental battle is that we just live in a time where that's an issue that we have to work through with the peace of God. And God helps us in those battles, in those struggles. But I think Philippians 4:6 is interesting because I think, at least in my study, what it's actually saying is don't be anxious about anything by yourself, but with everything by prayer and supplication. So it's basically saying don't be anxious, period. Like don't be anxious, period. But don't be anxious. Make your requests known to God. So like, don't sit in your anxiety, your fear, your battle by yourself, but actually translate that into a conversation and a journey with God. Wow. So I think that that's been really powerful for me, just in terms of like unlearning something that wasn't necessarily true, that I can control what's happening. Like, this is sickness. If I broke my leg, you would tell me to put a cast on. If I can't control something that's happening in my mind, I mean, I'm open about this, but I'm on medication for this. So I'm literally like, there's a part of me being treated for this thing in my mind. And I would just say that what I see God say in his word is that with whatever battle you're facing, there is an opportunity for the peace of God to enter in. John 14:27, my peace I leave you, my peace I give to you. I do not give you as the world gives. So there's something that God gives you through his son Jesus that makes you able to fight your battles. Another great illustration of this, Isaiah 40. It's when when the book of Isaiah turns and it goes from a message of warning to now a message of hope and comfort for the people of God who actually did some really not great things and got them in a sticky situation, but still God's comfort is for them. He tells them that he will renew their strength. That word renew meaning like, I will exchange my strength for yours and I'll help you walk through your battle. He won't take away the battle necessarily. He can. Like, there are people that God chooses to literally remove the struggle. But more often, and in my experience, God has given peace and has exchanged strength with me to where I can actually walk through the battle. So with what I see God saying about anxiety in the Bible is that there is an instruction to not be anxious, to not walk through your mental battle, to not experience worry by yourself, but to take everything that you deal with and bring it into your relationship with God so that God can provide peace in various ways, and he references that peace all across the text. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't want to go too far because we
That's
don't
so
have
good.
the ends of the world to talk through all of these things. But yeah, that's a great question, and I'm sorry that you struggle with that. But I also love meeting people who are like me, because it feels so much less
shocked
isolating.
to hear that you like struggle with that, because I would have like never thought that. But
Oh, it's horrible. This week, actually. Like, I had to switch a medication dosage this week, which people are very weird about talking about. I'm just a classic oversharer, so sorry.
So am I.
But
It's good. We need all of the conversation pieces
Yeah.
in this conversation.
it was like this week, a massive issue. Yeah. You know, so I was like prepping for this. I'm like, God, why can't I be through this? Like, isn't the best way to speak on something to get to the other side and look back and evaluate? And I felt the Spirit of God say, no, my power is made perfect in weakness. And so actually it's when you're smack dab in the middle of the lowest point of your struggle that your words, not your words, but like your words that point to the goodness and the faithfulness of God matter the most.
That's so powerful, Morgan.
That's really
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
And thank you for your sharing, because that's huge. I think I will use it.
That was amazing first question.
Great job.
Lise. Love it. Caleb, what do we have next?
Okay. I want to. So
Sorry.
it's okay. I want to clarify
I just
something.
accidentally hit his leg.
No,
so
I
just
accidentally-
wanted
Yeah,
to
that's
Explain
okay. You want to
why I said
clarify.
All right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to punch you.
That's good. That's good.
I'm sure it's a good question. Sorry,
So
it's weird.
That's okay. So, what do you think you're more passionate about, discipleship, or because what you do is small groups at Bayside?
Yeah.
Is that discipleship, or do you care more about church community?
Ooh.
being in authentic relationships.
Wow. Trixie.
Whoa, that
wait,
question
and-
is so hard.
And just say which one, because I have a question based off.
Oh,
which
great.
answer. So like.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is like a layered
Part A,
question.
part B.
Part
No,
A,
no,
part
no,
B.
no. it's
Choose
like-
your own
I
adventure
was
based
just
on
like
which
that.
way you
Which
go.
one? Yeah.
Okay, I would say you can't really have one without the other. So if a disciple is, hold on, let me stop. So if a disciple is a learner of Jesus specifically, then I don't really think there's learning in a discipleship format without or outside of the context of community. I think a crucial part of growth is community. So can I say that I don't think you can have one without the other?
Yes.
Because that's
100%.
going to feed your next question.
Yes.
Go for it.
I just want to see which one you were like. I might go two different ways, so I don't know.
Yeah, you could go. Okay, so this is maybe less of a cop out answer. I will say if you're categorizing discipleship as like intensive study, classroom environments versus. Go ahead.
I would. So if I'm gonna classify discipleship versus community, I would say the discipleship aspect of like Jesus, his relationship with his disciples.
Yep.
And then disciples relate like communal relationship with each other.
Oh, Oh, so which one do I lean more towards?
Like, which one do you are you're more passionate about, or you have more knowledge in?
Interesting. Jesus' relationship with his disciples
Okay.
is what I would say if you broke it down like that. Keep
Wow.
going though.
You were like
Okay.
a tricksy
You're
question answer.
freaking me out.
I am.
here's one
I'm
theologian.
fascinated to see where it goes. I'm like in.
on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, seriously.
I am recently not finding out, but recently kind of discovering that I'm more passionate towards discipleship.
Okay.
And that's kind of what I want to ask about. It's what is the importance of authentic community within the church, and how do we cultivate the kind of relationships that bring in this discipleship aspect? Oh Lord. That bring in this discipleship aspect. Like how do we choose?
He just knocked his mic for
Yeah,
anyone
I
wondering
just
what the
smacked
oh
it.
Lord was
Yeah.
about.
So funny,
And he
yeah.
was
Like-
literally talking to God
He
there.
didn't fall down. He didn't fall down. Yeah. Yeah.
This falls back in my seat. Yeah. I'll say that again. What's the
Yeah.
importance of authentic community within the church, and how do we cultivate the kind of relationships where discipleship occurs?
That's a fantastic question. I think the key word that you just said is authentic. And I was even just inspired by our Thrive College students. I've had two, Rosie and Lisette, who I've loved. And I feel
Awesome,
like so much
yeah.
of our relationship has been less of like mentor, mentee, and more like parallel, side by side, kind of like I share with you, I feed you, you feed me, we flip flop back and forth. And I think what's cool about the culture that our Thrive College students have set is that you guys engage in authentic, gritty community. There is sharing. There is weekly pursuit of each other in relationships. There is like confession and, hey, this is the thing I want to grow in. And it's like people are actually keeping you accountable and asking you questions about how you're growing in that thing. I think what's cool about our Thrive College is that's a pocket of our church that I've actually seen start that authentic sharing and authentic discipleship, and then it spreads out into the rest of our congregation. Like I see our staff, our 1825 ministry, Young Pros ministry changing and asking more questions. Here's what I love about that. Our interns are modeling something and it's starting to change the church.
Right.
We often think like leadership or initiatives have to flow from the top down.
Right.
And for some things, I think that's very true. In other things, like the Jesus model of discipleship, what if anybody, any stage, any age, any position decided this is going to be a cultural hill that I will die on in my time here?
That's good.
One person practicing something boldly enough with that much power associated with it can change an entire culture of people. So I think it's hugely important, such a value. And I think you start it by everybody who's listening to this deciding to model it in your church. 3 keys to authentic discipleship. These are not going to be cute or quippy, but
They're going to be true.
They're going to be true. I think it's vulnerability. I think it's questions, and I think it's accountability.
Vulnerability, questions,
Questions and accountability.
That's
Nice.
so good. All right. So go get vulnerable with someone. Not everyone needs to know the whole story, but someone needs to know the whole story.
Vulnerability begets vulnerability.
That's right.
Yep.
Vulnerability begets vulnerability. You modeled that so well today,
Yep.
Morgan.
Oh,
Questions. Make sure you're asking great questions. Be curious about what's going on. What was
Yep.
the third one?
Accountability.
Oh, yes. Especially like if someone confesses sin to you and then you never follow up and say, hey,
Yeah.
how's that going?
Yeah, or even a struggle. Like I was,
Right.
I mean, going back to the anxiety
Sure.
thing. I mean, Lean's just basically shared on this podcast to a lot of people that that's something that you struggle with.
Yeah.
So it's like that's a authentic community move to a lot of people. It's not even necessarily a sin struggle. That's like this is what I'm going through. Follow up, be with people, and if you're listening to this and that is something that you struggle with, then go confide in somebody about that.
Yeah.
Like,
So good.
and that's great. You just modeled that. See,
See?
you just modeled that. Now the whole
Vulnerability
world's gonna
begets
do it.
vulnerability.
It's great.
I love it.
I love it.
All right, Morgan, last question on the podcast.
Yes, ma'am.
If you could say one thing to a young leader, what would you say?
I said it earlier in like a less fun way, or like I said it in like less of a powerful way than I really mean it. But I really do mean this is my new thing right now. Let God be great, you be faithful.
Yes.
And I
That's very
think that we live in a time and place where we are obsessed with being great because the world is obsessed with being great, and we think if we're not great, then we haven't arrived, or that we're not
Sure.
making it.
So true.
If the whole point is that people would know Jesus, it genuinely doesn't matter if not a single other person knows your name. So your contribution is faithfulness. And people say faithfulness a lot right now. I think faithfulness is what's the work in front of you, who's the person in front of you, and do it every day unto the Lord, like reflecting and redirecting people back up to the Lord. And then it also takes the pressure off of you too, of like I was so worried about being great. That's vulnerable when I preach that message. Like I want it to be good.
Right.
And then I got that spirit check of like, no. If God's supposed to be great, then all you have to do is just be faithful. Like faithful to study, faithful to deliver it, faithful to be vulnerable. So every young leader, including myself, because I'm one of you, 27 years old, like God be great, you be faithful.
Amen. I think we just end it there, guys.
Love it.
Let God be great. You be faithful.
It's great.
Amen. Thank you so much, Morgan, for coming on the podcast.
Love you guys.
Thank you for joining us today on the Thrive College podcast. We hope that today's episode has empowered you to navigate the challenges and the opportunities of your future and your faith. If you really enjoyed our conversation today and appreciated what we had to offer, we would love for you to write a 5-star written review and share it with your friends. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.